And we are here. Hi, everyone. It's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer. And joining me today is comedian Kevin McLain. Hey, Kevin.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, and we are here and we are live, and it's great. It's wonderful. We are here looking great today, Kevin. And tell our audience who you are. Give a little bit about your background and how you approach comedy.
Sure. My name is Kevin McLain, and I've been doing stand-up in the DC area for about 3 years now. I actually used to wait tables at the DC Improv while in grad school, so I kind of had a master class when it came to comedy. I'd see the same comedians do the same 7 sets over a weekend while being paid. So that's really the best you can
Of
hope for.
course.
And I would hear and see and kind of visualize what it takes to be a great stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And I think I almost studied stand-up for that tenure there. And so I think think about comedy in very structural ways, in a way that some of my peers don't. And that's not to say they aren't funny. I think they're clever and very talented people, but I think most comedians, uh, when they think something's funny, they feel it in their bones, they go with their gut, and then they write their set. For me, I think something's funny, I pause, I reflect and think, is this truly funny? Who is not going to think it's funny? How do I win those people over? How do I critique the people who did laugh too earlier and maybe not the right punchline? How do I move what was previously said at the end? And how do I get people not just to laugh and appreciate me and enjoy my point of view, but also to think more deeply about some social issue later? So I kind of
Mm.
get all of this together to kind of create my experience as a performer.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, my friends tell me all the time that I'm funny, that I'm hilarious. But I could never see myself doing stand-up only because I think I'm conversationally funny, but like not writing a joke and tell it funny. Tell me when you realized that you were stand-up funny and you wanted to make that a career.
Yeah, I think just like you, I think a lot of people had always said, you're so funny in general, but then I think there's a confidence issue about, becoming a stand-up comedian, let alone just a funny person at a dinner party. And I had thrown, for my last two boyfriends, I threw a surprise birthday roast for both of them. Both relationships did not succeed, and I'm going to guess that could have been a reason why. They may have not liked all the jokes that were said, though I think everyone else in the room really did. And I think it gave me the confidence to realize that I could take the spotlight and write really funny jokes. And if you think I'm funny talking about other people, well, let me start talking about myself and see if you think that's funny too. And it seems like people did. And so I kind of carried on with that for years later.
Wonderful. Well, tell me about how it is, because I've spoken to quite a few people during this time. Tell me how it is being a performer, being a comedian during a time like now, during the pandemic, as especially during this year, how that has been and how you've had to adapt to that.
Yeah. So I think I've taken a big step back from stand up during this time because I love live performance. I mean, I don't think anything really beats it. It's the difference between watching a concert in your living room versus being there in person. There's something really special about this collective experience that isn't just about like the words on the paper, you know?
Yeah.
And I write very much for the live performance. And so those are huge differences between even a virtual show. So when you do a
Mhm.
virtual show, you can't just be like, give it up for X because people are muted. Or they may not be paying attention. And if you have, I think, a very thoughtful set, it's really hard for people to stay attuned when they have so many other
Mhm.
distractions. When I do a live show, I always like to start with who's ready for some gay comedy? Because I know in DC, everyone will have to clap. Even if you're a
Yes.
conservative, you will clap because you don't want people to hate you. And you're going to keep your asses in your seat because you don't want
Uh-huh.
people to think that you're insensitive. So it's a strategic way of getting people involved and ready for you and making them stay attention. That just doesn't happen in a virtual show. And so I've done a few, and I think it's just thinking very structurally about how am I going to come across here, what jokes are loose that won't make much sense here, and because I think I do a lot of ribbing of the audience, being like, oh, you laughed at this joke, but not this. You really can't do that. You can't make fun of specific audience members in the room because people are looking like, well, who is Zebra Girl 35?
Oh, yes.
So those things are different. So I've taken a big step back in general, but because I really thought this pandemic was going to just kind of blow over, But now that it's been quite some time, I think I'm going to start getting booked on these shows and start promoting them. And I'm really excited for the opportunity because I've seen a lot of comics, I think, do really great stuff. And I think more importantly, network with people they would never interact with
Yes.
previously because of this
Yeah.
format.
Definitely. And but has anything this year, have these things start, inspired you and inspired any of your jokes or upcoming material that you might have?
So there's just so much, and I know a lot of people like to ask me, my friends who haven't seen me in a few months, are like, "Oh, did you write COVID material?" And I'm like, "No, I did not write COVID material because everyone's written COVID
Of
material.
course they have. Of course
Every
they
single
have.
person on Twitter, every late night show host. I mean, every perspective is taken. I don't think there really is a lot of fresh ground to be made, or they're just too similar views to other ones that I've had. For me, I love, I guess, the confinements that exist within certain themes. So like one time I went to a party and performed a set as a comedian of the 1920s because it was a
Oh.
Great Gatsby party. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, what jokes can you make in that concept? Like, do these
Yeah,
people
yeah.
really know who Calvin Coolidge is? How do you write for these types of people? And I think that's really fun. I actually just taped with the Constituents, which is this comedy troupe that I'm part of. We usually do political roasts,
Mhm.
like the Correspondence Dinner, essentially. And
Yes.
I played Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke and a bunch of different people. And so we just taped like a Trump Biden debate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually going to come out, believe on Amazon and a few other places.
Oh, nice.
Those dates are still in the mix. And so I'll just promote my social at the end. And that's where I will usually
Yeah.
update people. But, as a political comic, you're always writing what's new all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
And you have to stay fresh.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the small details. My first joke ever was about Roy Moore, who, if you don't remember, was the pedophile running
Uh-huh.
to be senator from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And the joke essentially was, I'm glad this crowd's very supportive of me. My biggest fear is this crowd's going to be full of like Roy Moore Republicans, the ones that love the gays, sorry, hate the gays but love the children. And
Yeah.
those type of things. That being said, Roy Moore is not in the news cycle anymore. I used to have sets
Exactly.
about Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
She's out of the news cycle now. I used to have jokes about the Washington Redskins, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a whole set about Juneteenth.
Ah.
And you see how the political and social world has changed.
Yes, yes.
Me making a joke about Juneteenth has a different context now than it
Mm-hmm.
did 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for any performer to be aware of that. I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of conversation about, is political correctness killing comedy?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it is. I think at most maybe it self-censors audiences about how they're reacting to material, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a new level to be thoughtful of in your writing. And I think the more thought you put into it, the better it is. And I think that creates, great stuff to listen to.
Definitely, definitely. Tell me, who are some of the comics that have inspired you over the years?
Yeah. So people like to ask me this quite often. I think for a lot of people, they name like George Carlin or Dave Chappelle, and there's just so many, incredible performers. I don't know if any individual person was like my inspiration solely.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I love roasts, and that's kind of a collection of a bunch of different performers.
Yeah.
Um, but the performer I feel the most closest to is like Michelle Wolf, which I
Yes.
think is like a weird choice. I don't think we definitely don't look similar.
Yeah.
um, but I think we both approach comedy in a way that we want, at the end of our jokes, it's about what are we really talking about?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
informed, it's intelligent, it can be raunchy and silly or even stupid, but there's still a meaning behind it. And
Yeah.
that's the way I approach it. I used to, when I would write biographies for comedy shows or for festivals, I'd always end it being like, smart, but silly. Imagine like Trevor Noah, but as a big gay slut. So trying to combine all these different angles. And so I think I like a lot of the people that do political comedy in general. So like The Daily
Yeah.
Show, those type of things really always
Mm-hmm.
appealed to me.
I love that. Love that. Well, Kevin, for our audience out there who wants to keep up with you, follow you, and all of that, how are they able to do that?
Sure. So you can follow me at Asian Narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
It's very catchy.
Very.
Facebook, Asian Narcissist, 2 words. Instagram, 1 word. You can also on YouTube, Asian Narcissist, pretty much on all platforms except Twitter, where I'm just Asian Narc.
Mhm.
and that's because someone took narcissist. So there, it definitely sounds like I'm a snitch. But yeah, Asian narcissist is the place to find it. I thought I was so clever when I created it because no one really had that term before being used. But usually when I tell people after shows, they always go, "Oh, I can't spell narcissist," and they'll give me their phone, and I realize they misspelled Asian. So the spelling is correct here, and I look forward to any followers on any platform, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining me. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.